All right, we are here with Robert Shields, candidate for borough mayor. Robert, how's it going?
Hey, good evening, Matt. Thanks for having me. It's been an exciting day. I had another great performance at the Chamber Luncheon, and every time I show up to these events, I make a good impression. I leave people considering my campaign because I have viable solutions. It's not just more political rhetoric. As I was mentioning before, I'm disappointed in myself that I waited so long expecting other leaders to step up and that they were going to do this so that I could focus on doing the work of bringing these investors to town. But they chose other paths, and so we had no representation. And if I hadn't run, the people of this borough would have no choice except to accept 3 more years of political backbiting, conflict, and business as usual. And that's not 3 more years I think we can afford.
Gotcha, gotcha. Yeah, no, what was the event you had today?
It was the chamber luncheon for the Fairbanks Chamber of Commerce.
Oh,
So it
okay.
was at the Hill. It was at the Marriott up on 10th Avenue,
Okay.
and probably about 100, people there. It was on the evening news.
Oh, nice. Yeah. I was at the West Valley, the one at West Valley High School, in the auditorium there. I went and checked that one out. And yeah, it was definitely something that stood out to me. It was like, oh, this guy's saying something that, it was almost predictable what the other candidates would say, and this guy's coming with something different. So, talk to me a little bit about this NEDD program. This had something to do with the Polaris building.
So 13 years ago, some architects got an ambitious idea to try to find a new investor for the Polaris, and so they put up this huge sign on the side of the building. It said "Looking for love again." And I
Hmm.
have a big heart, and so I started looking at not only that building for what we could do with it because it was a concrete mountain poured in place. And it was really sad that we were so economically focused on money that we allowed an investor from or a developer from Anchorage to buy and hold the building for a decade empty just because it wasn't convenient for him. And he so anyway, but the North Star Economic Development District is an idea that came out of the work that was on the Polaris. Back in 2019, I had the opportunity to go to a conference in Vegas and actually meet investors and developers. And because we've been told for years that there's no money to invest in the kind of stuff we're talking about, that there's no technologies that'll work in Alaska, and that there's no businesses that want to come here and do business because that it's not their climate. And that's not really true. There are businesses that have and are trying to come here. Unfortunately, the political climate favors holding on to the past, and so they don't want to hear things that may challenge their way of doing things, like turning the schools into power plants. It's a no-brainer. Other people are doing it, but to do so would challenge Golden Valley's assumption that we should be grateful that we have clean, cheap coal, and this is the only way we can do things. So
Hmm.
basically from that experience, I was able to develop a program based on economic development using permaculture principles, which
Hmm.
basically see nature, the models that nature has. Termites have high rises that have great air conditioning and no mechanical systems.
Hmm.
And a lot of our big advances come from what we've been able to learn from nature because nature has an economy and we
Yeah.
don't have to live like hippies. We can shower. We can
Yeah.
have,
Yeah.
we can have our vehicles and stuff like that. But it's all about living in balance. And we have
Sure.
gone way out of balance. And so right now, what we have is that we have a situation where for the last 20 years or so, the environment has been at war with the economy. Because that's what you hear.
Hmm.
If you want something good for the economy, it has to come at the cost of the environment. And if you want something good for the environment, well, it's going to come at the cost of the economy. That's not true anymore.
Right.
Now it's to the point where making investments in lowering our footprint, lowering our consumption saves us money.
Mm.
Getting into locally produced foods helps
Yeah.
heal our body because man, it is nauseous out there, the propaganda that they're
Mm.
feeding us and what they consider food.
No, yeah.
And so the
Yeah,
North Star
absolutely.
Economic, yeah, so the North Star Economic Development District was an idea that started from the Polaris and basically grew into an opportunity to really start planning our communities. I've been
Mm.
involved in the comprehensive economic development strategy development for the borough for the last 9 years, and
Mm.
basically the that feds is the borough's business plan. If it's not in that plan, it doesn't happen. And
Mm.
so we've heard all this talk about this climate action and adaptation plan, but
Mm.
it was drafted and written outside the SEDS. It has no economic teeth. It's just a basic bunch of philosophies that people are trying to push on us, and that's not what we
Mm.
need.
No, it's
So
yeah,
there
not
are
a fan.
there are private equity investors that are seeing good returns after 5 years, that are
Mm.
willing to come in and help us upgrade our infrastructure and address many of the
Mm.
deferred maintenance issues we just have ignored. And in doing so, allow us to
Yeah.
be able to make the upgrades like moving our utilities underground. That's not
Mm.
way too expensive for anyone to do, but if we do it as a community, not only is it cost effective, but it's also cost saving in the long run because we avoid all of those future challenges. The
How do you fund something like that?
Well, there are a couple of, depending on the framework of the deal, there are a couple of different options. There are bonds,
Right,
there are
right.
flip options, there are third party financing. It gets really technical, but it depends on the scope of work. If it's just one
Mm.
building, then there's basic construction loans. But when you
Right.
start talking about utilities and you start talking about infrastructure of a whole town, the
Mm.
funding mechanisms on that are very different. One of our investors, Mark Hewitt,
Mm.
is a former Fairbanks City Council member. And he has put together, and it's available on our website, some really good presentations on micro city financing. So if
Mm.
anybody is interested in learning about the details about some of these models, that's one that we've been looking at. There are a couple of other models like the Green Bay Packers. Are you familiar with how that ownership model works? Their common stock ownership.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So basically, talking about keeping people in control by putting them in the ownership position. And we know it works for
Mm.
distributing power from corporations because the NFL banned it after it
Um,
happened. So
talk to me about said they're turning schools into power plants. So what's that look like? Because we've obviously got some school closures coming up, and yeah, I think repurposing those buildings is going to be is something that definitely needs to be I don't know, made a good use of.
so the North Star Economic Development District model is a community planning model, and it began looking at what we could do with the Polaris site. For,
Mm.
we wanted to do something with the hotel, but now we're basically looking at the site and perhaps that whole city block. But it's
Mm.
important because it's in the heart of this town, which is
Yeah.
in the heart of the state. And so the idea is to use that area to demonstrate new types of planning that goes to how we plan our schools. And basically, that's where NED came from. It's a new way of developing things based on regenerative principles and regenerative economics and ways for us to find a balance and turn the divide between the economy and the environment into a multiplier. Because when they work together, we could be adding zeros to our dividends, and we could be
Mm.
having cost of energy that are nickel high instead of 30 cents high. And so that's
Mm.
where this all came from with the North Star Economic Development District. As I've also been one of the last projects I worked on when I was in Portland in sustainable development was an 875 kilowatt solar array for a nonprofit in downtown Portland, which is still active today. But the
Mm.
innovative thing about that wasn't the solar. It was the financing that allowed a nonprofit who doesn't have a tax liability to be able to work with a for profit company who does to pass through those tax credit measures. It is now known as the pass through measure. So
Mm.
that's one of many models that have been developed that just on avoided cost can allow these communities to pay for these kind of infrastructures because we may not have any sun in the wintertime, but we have tremendous amounts of sun in the summertime. And if
Mm.
we can bank that energy either through affordable payments with Golden Valley or more likely with on-site use,
Yeah.
we can really get
It's-
full value of that. And that's what I brought up this afternoon is that the borough could be saving millions of dollars a year, and it wouldn't cost us anything. Wouldn't no
mm.
tell taxpayers it's all avoided cost.
Mm.
But essentially, we'd be able to redesign our energy grid from the borough up.
Mm.
And we've been in talks with Home Depot and Lowe's and Walmart about the consumption they have, because if they went net zero and they're completely capable of it on their own, it would
Yeah, yeah.
reshape how the borough generates energy, and it
Hmm.
would move us in a direction favoring distributed energy. So instead of trying to
Right.
build one big power plant and then build a battery system and then just to try to distribute this through all the lines,
Yeah, it's a lot.
we work with existing homeowners and business owners to outfit their buildings with multiple technologies that allow them to generate their energy and store their energy and use their energy on site.
Hmm. Yeah.
That's instead of building a new bass, that's what the Golden Valley should be doing with this the money that they're getting from the DOE, is helping everybody have a power cell or a power wall, which is basically a
Yeah.
really fancy battery backup,
Yeah, yeah.
especially as the borough is demanding that everybody who doesn't have an approved wood stove
Yeah.
get rid of their wood
Yeah.
stove, which is
Yeah,
really ridiculous
don't
because
get me started on
it leaves
that.
us vulnerable. So the idea it wasn't the idea about turning our schools into power plants was a way to fund them, but it was also a
Hmm.
way to provide stellar education to the kids, because solar is a really simple plug and play technology, and a middle school student can and should be involved in the design of the system that goes on their schools. And that's
Hmm.
what the whole STEAM resolution is encouraging the schools to be designated as STEAM campuses. And then we start looking, and then to get the students involved and looking at how they can make their own energy, grow their own food,
Yeah.
turn their waste into things that they can use. One of the things I pointed out when I worked at the school district was I demonstrated to the school board and the borough how each school could be generating $125,000 a year just by recycling their plastic food containers into the filament for 3D printing.
Hmm.
They said, thank you
It's
for the
interesting.
information. They said, thank you for the information. We'll get back to you. I can only imagine how many well-intended people have gotten that same kind of boilerplate blow off. And here
Yeah,
we are
yeah,
closing
that's
our
the
schools. Yeah. And like you said, here we are closing our schools, and we've got other schools
well,
in other states that are paying their teachers $16,000 a year bonuses.
yeah, I think I don't think closing the schools is necessarily the worst thing. We have declining enrollment and consolidating the students. I think that's probably the move that needs to be made. But no, that's all very good stuff. Like I said, I'm all about the sustainability and thing, but actual sustainability, not like when they talk about it over in Davos and that whole crowd, all this green stuff that they are proposing. It doesn't actually solve anything, and there's always some kind of like Trojan horse for some totalitarian measure or another, and it's
Absolutely.
just it's a
This is
shame that
exactly
they gotta sully the whole deal like that.
Well, this is exactly what I was mentioning today about the Democrats weaponizing the climate. They've pushed it
Yeah.
to extremes in order to be able to exact control. And like you said, it's a
Mhm.
Trojan horse, because at the heart of it, oil productions can be sustainable.
Yeah, right,
Coal
right.
productions can be sustainable. Anything can be sustainable if you can maintain it over the long course. And
Yeah.
what I've been working on doing, is giving the people of this community tools they do not currently have and options they're told do not exist. Because
Mm.
unfortunately, politicians in the state are very much like American doctors. They won't tell you they don't know the answer. They'll tell you the answer doesn't exist. And that is
Right.
not a solution that's going to work for anyone. So we
Yeah.
need to be making those investments. We need to be moving in a direction where we can rebuild trust with people.
Yeah.
So that's
Yeah.
why I've been trying to focus on things that really matter to everyone. Is that by focusing on the economic development district and providing people tools to do city planning, because we don't. If we
Mm.
built a house one room at a time, after 20 years, we may have a mansion, but it's not going to be efficient at all. And that's the challenge we have with our cities. We don't design them, we don't think about them. And you and I and our kids are the ones that are going to be living with the uncontrolled cost and the
Yeah.
challenges of those kind of environments. Like, cities need to grow, cities need to plan to grow. So while
Yeah.
it may be
Yeah.
necessary
That's how
at
you
the
do.
moment to shut down school buildings because of enrollment and consolidate classes, those are still buildings that can be used to
Mm.
teach adult
Yeah.
classes that can be used as temporary daycare. There's a number of uses that
Oh
those
yeah.
buildings could provide that have economic value instead of sitting empty, because even sitting empty, they cost the borough money.
Oh yeah. No, definitely. They can't be sitting empty. You got to figure out something to do with them. That's for sure. And I don't want to also want to say this in your mayoral campaign, but so many of the problems that we're facing, I think of, the answers are not going to come politically or from government. They're going to come from the private sector and through people in the community stepping up and doing what needs to be done. I feel like that's almost where you're gonna find your opportunities at more so
Well,
than
we do a
through
lot working
government.
with the private sector. We do a lot with the private sector, but this is the heart of Ned, is that we've
Mm,
reached that point where we're not just buying one building and developing it. We're looking at buying a building and developing it in a manner that's going to influence how other buildings are built, how other
mm,
structures are built
mm,
miles away. How all of those
right.
things are connected, especially when it comes to energy, heating, waste, water,
Yeah.
all of those
How
things.
how
We
uh how is the borough receiving you when you come at them with this kind of thing? Are you like getting making headway with them and like actually planning things and
well,
because again, if
ultimately,
you whether you're the mayor or not, it seems like something that whoever does get in there needs to at least be considering this stuff.
ultimately, um, the reason I'm running is because it's the mayor's position. They're the ones that manage this business plan, the SEDS.
Mm,
And the mayor is the only one that's not on board. I've
mm,
in the last year, I actually managed, even as a private citizen, to get a unanimous resolution passed by the borough assembly, the city council, and Golden Valley for advancing the North Star Economic Development District. I even got a letter from the mayor of City of Fairbanks and Ashley Carrick, but
mm.
I didn't get one from Bryce Ward. And I've
Huh.
tried for years to work with Bryce. And I did bring up before I ran, I met with both Breyer and John. I shared with
Mm,
them the same information I shared with you that I've shared with the public. And
mm,
I have an entire folder on a Google Drive that's filled with things for the borough, showing how they could generate energy, showing how they could do better things. And to this day, I haven't seen anybody really access it.
mm,
But we got the resolutions
mm,
passed. And basically now we're moving into getting it integrated into the SEDS, because that's the
mm,
next step. Once you get into the integrated to SEDS, then you'll be able to develop it through the capital improvement plan. And instead of developing one project, we'll be able to develop them all. That's
mm.
the level of
Yeah.
financing they have. And the efficiency of doing this is basically financing a new car instead of continuing to try to ride a bicycle to work in the wintertime. You know,
Yeah.
if a bike is all we have to get to work, and we will ride it in the wintertime, and that's what we're doing now. But we have
Right.
the opportunity with these social impact investors to make the upgrade and actually prepare Fairbanks for the 21st century. Wouldn't
Mm.
it be nice to be ahead of the curve for once?
Yeah. Absolutely. Hmm.
So I
Hmm.
also wanted to take a moment to mention to your, I know you have a pretty conservative audience, and I
Sure.
also wanted to take a moment to clarify some things about the Green Party, especially when you're talking about how sustainability and all these green things have been twisted and manipulated into some kind of Trojan horse of control and manipulation.
Sure.
We're not
Sure.
about that. We're not about that at all.
Hmm.
I found
So
I
are
was
you running as a green or are you
Oh,
independent?
absolutely.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, no, I am the chair of the Green Party of Alaska. I
Yeah,
was
okay.
elected in 2021 after my first tenure in 2018, where it was presented to me in a box. In 2016, I learned that in 2016, using the spoiler fear for Donald Trump, that the Democrats had actually gone in, not only in Alaska, but nationwide, and basically just annihilated the Green Party membership. We've got like
Hmm.
less than 2,000 members now because they convinced them they had to become Democrats in order to vote in the closed primaries so that
Yeah.
they could beat Trump. And obviously that didn't happen. But they have
Hmm.
infiltrated the environmental movement and made it
Yeah.
so that Republicans can't talk about climate, because anytime they talk about climate, then they become part of this conspiracy. And the fact
Um,
is, the climate's
uh,
changing because the climate's always changing.
yeah, because
And
of
the
the
goal
sun. Huh.
Yeah, well, the sun, how we move through space, how we spin, all the
Yeah.
orbital rotation, all of those
Things
kind of
things that we're
things,
not doing anything about it.
things
Certainly
that we
you
have no control
you
over.
unplugging your stove isn't going to matter one bit.
But what we can control is what we do. And what we
Mm,
can control is how we live with the planet instead of just living on her. And I think
mm,
that kind of shift in mentality allows us to build that community because I agree with you. We need to develop a sense of the change that we want to see is not going to come from a political leader. The
mm.
best the political
Yeah.
leader can do is make the space for the community to come together and work out their challenges. One of the
Yeah.
questions we were asked tonight or today was how we would go about bringing in fostering a greater relationship between the cities and stuff like that because it's a little contentious, or getting more people
Mhm.
to act more, or it was how do we bring back civility to the borough assembly meetings. My simple answer was potlucks. We
Yeah.
need to start getting to know each other. We need to start finding ways to connect as people, not as political adversaries or political allies or business
Yeah.
interests.
Yeah. Well,
Because
and the people in office listening to the public, like that's what should drive what the assembly does. It's, more than anything, they're not there to dictate anything.
no,
I think
absolutely, and
that's a big part of it. Like we shouldn't have to be going in there every other week to protest something they're doing. Like they should be doing what we're, you know, putting forth and asking them to do.
yeah,
But
well, Barbara Haney, one of the conservative members on the assembly, has worked on a online report card or an online budget that allows people to see where the money's being spent and stuff like
mm,
that. I think that we
that's
have the
good.
technology to make it available for people to
Absolutely.
contribute to resolutions and to we are at an age where we can have more of a direct democracy, and the more direct democracy we
Yeah.
have, the less government we need to have.
Yeah. I forget where it was. I want to say like Singapore or Thailand or something, where they basically had like a January 6th type deal, but it was a bunch of like computer programmers and hackers, and they basically put the country's budget on a blockchain. And I don't know. I was watching Joe Rogan. He's like, if they did that here, it'd be a revolution if people found out where the money's actually going. It's a little
And we
different on the
need
state level, but yeah.
Yeah, and we kind of need that.
Yeah.
I've been a proponent for local currency. I even came
Mm.
up with the idea that
Yeah.
we could have a paper currency called the Vogler. Really support Joe Vogler's independence. But
There you go.
in 2020, we were tried to we were approached by the Green Party National, and they offered to help us get ballot access, and
Mm.
that was great until they tried to force us to vote for their lackluster Howie Hawkins. And
Mm.
we weren't going to do that. We didn't have they tried to hold us accountable for things that we never signed. They threatened us. And so basically what happened was in 2020, we put a poll out to all the people of all the candidates, and the person that the people of Alaska told us that they wanted in office was Jesse Ventura. And we got Jesse Ventura on the ballot, and even though he ended up not running, he still came in fourth. You have to understand,
Yeah,
he
yeah.
came in fourth and he didn't run. So you can imagine what kind of
Oh
impact he
yeah.
would have had. But
I
since then,
mean,
the Green Party of Alaska has been unaffiliated with the National Green Party. And this has made us, to some
that's good
people,
though.
villains. It's made us, to some people, folk heroes. Because
Yeah, I
I
like
believe
that.
that I believe that the Green Party has a place, just like every party has a place. And the Green
Yeah,
Party's place is the voice of the environment. I
sure.
think the Republicans should be focusing on the environment. The Democrats can focus on social issues. The Libertarians can focus on independent rights, and the Libertarians can focus on making sure the government stays in its lane and not tries to control everybody's life. There's a role for us all to play, and in many
Yeah,
countries, there is that diversity in politics. We have
yeah,
many parties, but in this country, and especially in this region, we've lost trust with the government because the government continuously lies to us. Just
yeah,
in this election alone, they're trying to push that this is a nonpartisan election. And we have a
yeah. I've seen
governor-backed
that.
Republican candidate, a candidate that's backed by all the Democrats, and
Yeah,
all the former mayors, and basically trying to tell us that's new energy and that's change when it's not. And the Green Party has focusing on has the Green Party of Alaska has been basically focusing on creating an environment that's welcoming to people to share different perspectives and to work together to build common sense solutions that are right down the middle. And
Yeah.
so that's what our new position is to basically focus on things that will bring us economic prosperity. And from that economic prosperity, we can discuss and build the kind of community we want to have together. But without addressing the cost of energy, without addressing the cost of living, we're not going to have an economy to talk about.
Yeah. 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 And like I think that really from what I'm hearing, again, everybody sees the same issues. It's just a matter of, getting a consensus on how to go about solving the problems. So, so it's good to hear a different perspective and different ideas to come in and address some of these things because that's what it's going to take. Obviously, the same old is just keep getting what we've been getting. So, said it's refreshing to hear. I
Well,
enjoy
I
it.
appreciate the time, and like I said, I'm running to give people choice, not between
Mm.
Democrats, Republicans, and Greens, but
Hmm.
about 3 more years of partisan politics or 3 years of peaceful exploration, education, and looking for new opportunities to make this community something people want to come to, raise their families here. And that's what
Yeah,
we need to work on. And that's what my platform and position allows. So hopefully,
absolutely.
I will get enough votes and be able to take a seat this time.
Hmm.
Last time I ran, I didn't have the any campaign budget, didn't have any flyers, or didn't have any signs or anything, and I still got 10% of the vote.
Yeah, I
So
mean,
now I've been able to, yeah,
yeah,
now
that's a
I've been
low
able to
low
do a little,
turnout makes it possible.
well, now I've been able to do a little bit more, and I'm running against two established candidates. So they're going to be
Mm.
picking off each other, and there is a better chance for me as a third candidate to be able to pick up the vote. And what
Mm.
I need are the people out there that are registered to vote but aren't normally willing to vote, because that
Right.
demographic is huge. If I didn't get a single vote for anybody who normally votes and only got votes from and
Oh
only
yeah.
got like 20% of the vote from the people who don't normally vote because politics is messed
Yeah.
up and they
Yeah,
don't want to
that's
get
that's
engaged.
that's the biggest voting block is the non-voter.
Yeah, and so I'm trying to reach out with real solutions that are proven and working in other areas. Nothing I'm talking about, high speed transit, all of that kind of stuff is being deployed in other areas. As we're talking about these ideas like high speed transit, China broke a land speed record
Yeah,
for doing
yeah.
this, using the
Well,
same kind of technology.
we're really behind the ball on that
So,
one in
well,
America.
I'm doing everything I can to win this race, and I appreciate any contributions or any support that I can get from the community
Absolutely.
out there in the next couple of weeks, because this will be a big difference in advertising. But I am committed to continuing to serve this community,
Cool,
and for
man.
as long as I draw breath, I will try to make Fairbanks a better place for us all to live.
Awesome. I love the message, and like I said, I love the ideas. And where can people go to support you? What's the website?
So it's real simple. Vote robertshields.com.
All right, good deal. And any events you got coming up? I'm sure there's some more. I know there's a couple more
There is
forums and things coming up.
the League of Women Voters is having their meeting on the 20 this Thursday. And then the Visitors Forum, it's not next week, but the last week before the elections
Yeah,
is
right.
the Visitor Forum. I can send you the information. I can't pull it up while we're
Yeah,
chatting on the phone.
yeah, yeah. And you're
Um,
pretty active on Facebook, I've seen, so people can go there and follow you too.
Facebook is a good place to do it too. And then our big event, which we're going to be advertising, is the Tour of Future Cities, which is actually happening the weekend after the election. So
Hmm.
we're pushing people to get involved in that, because it's a lot of the same things that we're going over, and we're going to be
Right.
doing some conflict resolution and team building and community work. So I've already invited the other mayors that
Okay.
whoever wins is going to get to give the keynote speech. So I'm trying to bring the community together, and so October 5th, the Tour Future Cities is going to be a great place to start. And then in the meantime, I would just really encourage your folks to check out futurecity.org. It's a competition for high school students and middle school students about dreaming and thinking about what they would like to see their city at 100 years from now. It's a great tool for innovators and for educators and engineers. And I think it's a really great tool because thinking 100 years in the future allows us to leap over all the political BS that nobody wants to deal with.
Right. Right.
So thank you
Yeah.
for sharing all that information, and
Yeah.
thank you very much for taking the time.
No problem. Appreciate the time as well. And good luck. We'll definitely be following you and see you. So wish you the best.
Yeah, well, maybe sometime soon I'll get down and visit you at the cabin.
All right. Yeah, sounds good.
Okay, have a good evening. Thank you.
Uh,